So let's see what the errors look like. Oh, left something off, didn't I? One of you kids should have caught that. All right, let's try again. All right. So let's share a new window, inner line of text to enumerate. And let's say we do start with some spaces. All right. So here we are at the breakpoint that I set. And we've got some automatic watch variables here. This is some text that's gone into input text. And if I step to the next instruction, J is 0 because we found something in our string in the punctuation list. Now we're going to look for not in string, and I is 3, so it skipped over those first 3 spaces that I put in there and positioned itself to the next letter that's not a space or other punctuation. I is still less than input text length, so we're going to try and find punctuation again. This time J is 7, so we're going to add 1 to words. And then we'll skip over the punctuation or text that we found. Okay, so words has gotten up to 3 now. Let me put a watch on that just so we can see it. And for some reason it's not updating the watch value, but watch the words is now up to 4, which is the correct number of words. So that's one way to find all the words. Any questions about that? Okay, so the other part is to count the letters. So if that successfully counted the words, how would we go about counting the letters? And since we're doing this in a loop, there's some cleanup that we're going to have to do. So and in fact, we're going to have to prime this. Well, no, we don't have to prime this because we know what we're doing. All right, so we'll have to set words back to 0 again. After we've output it, of course. What are we going to do about the letters? If we only care about the letters themselves, we're not worried about numeric digits. We could have an array of integers that's long enough to hold all of the letters. (26), right? And we would want to initialize that all to 0 to begin with. Probably be better to use a constant in case we decided we wanted to put something else in this later. And then we would need another loop. We're going to do it that way. Which, if we're worried about efficiency, you might say, well, if we're going to go through the entire string one letter at a time, in order to count the letters, then we don't need all of these finds in here. We could just be looking at each letter individually. We would have to know when we are in a string of letters and when we're in a string of non-letters, though. Does that make sense? So when we're talking about that, let's rewrite this one loop so that it does both things. So let's say we're only going to do letters. We're only counting letters. And we're going to want to test them to see if they're alphabetic. So we're going to need the CC type library. If is alpha, input text at I, then letter count to lower input text at I minus to lower okay, what did I do there? So letter count is an array, right? And so I want to add 1, that's what the increment on the end is doing, to a particular element of the array that corresponds to a particular letter of the alphabet. The particular letter of the alphabet I want it to correspond to is the one I'm currently looking at. So if I entered the letter C, for example, then I want to increment the letter count for the letter C. So